Welcome back. How are poorer countries in Africa dealing with the global economic downturn? Well, our guests have differing perspectives. Yash Chopra is the executive director of the South Centre Secretariat in Geneva. He believes that Africa will not be so badly affected by the global credit squeeze. From our studios in London, I'm joined by Razia Khan, head of research for Africa at Standard Chartered Bank, and here with me on the set I have Todd Moss, former Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Bureau of African Affairs at the US Department of State from May 2007 to October 2008. Let's get back to our discussion with a question from Saud on the line from Bahrain. Saud, thanks for your patience.
No problem, Riz.
Thanks.
I'd like to ask this question either to Todd or to Razia Khan.
Okay.
What happened to moral fabric of the gurus of financial institutions that mortgage lending to unqualified borrowers that resulted in subprime crisis and then the domino effect causing economic turmoil? And then following up on that, I want to further ask, are financial institutions taking any concrete steps to avoid such corporate greed?
Okay, let's start first with Todd Moss then. The moral fabric, what's happened to that? How did this lending to unqualified borrowers just get so out of hand?
Well, I mean, I think that it all started with quite good intention, where people that were unable to get mortgages or unable to get credit were able to borrow, and it put millions of people into homes that otherwise wouldn't have. But what happened is by being able to repackage those and sell them on as derivatives, that people were taking too many risks. And as a whole, the system took too many risks. I don't think it has anything to do with moral fiber of bankers. It has to do with a system where risk became priced too low and the entire system came under stress.
Let's get to our live station chat going on here. And again, thanks to everyone who's in there taking part in this. Rati Mehrotra from India has written in with a question for you, Professor Tandon. Rati asks, what are the steps for African countries to get out of aid dependence?
Well, in our study on ending the aid dependence, we have suggested 7 steps to get out of aid dependence. The first one is the most important one, and that is the necessity to get our psychology, our mindset, outside of depending on aid. For 30 years, Africa has been put this drug. It's like a drug, and you get addicted to it. And when you withdraw from drugs, in the first instance, it's a painful experience. So Africa will have to go through a painful experience of doing without aid. And then we have to prepare budgets for the poor, by the poor themselves, and not budgets prepared by our governments for the donors to provide money to us. That has been disastrous for Africa. And so on, we have to then develop a domestic market. We have to domestic regional and national markets. Export are important. We are not advocating autarky. There are some amount of export that is necessary, but we need to depend on largely domestic regional market, and so on. There are several steps that we have indicated in our book.
All right, thank you. So, well, let me get Amin on the line from Holland because he's been waiting patiently as well. Amin?
As the professor said, now I am from Somaliland. We've been 18 years after the war develop ourselves.
Okay.
And we really, we don't have an international constitution like banks, international banks, they operate in my country. But we have a business with whole of Asia, starting from India. The same time, we are sick and tired of the United Nations, which brings a food when our farming come out to depress our farmers, and the price of our corn comes low. And we know some figures in the United and some part of the United Nations, they take this subsidized food and they said we're going to take it to Africa. As a Somalilander, we don't need it.
Okay, I mean, let me ask our guest here, Todd Moss. Do you think trade policies will be impacted by the way the financial crisis has affected everyone? Do you think it'll have an impact on the way trade is handled?
Well, I think that there's a lesson from history that's actually quite frightening, in that after the financial crisis of the 1920s, the world decided to start to cut off trade, and that led to the Great Depression. I'm relatively optimistic that we've learned that lesson, and that we'll work hard to keep the international trade open. What I worry is that the industrialized world will coordinate trade policies to try and get through this crisis as quickly as possible, but that some of the African countries might decide to go their own way and throw up new trade barriers, and then that would actually leave them out in the cold in the recovery.
Let's get a squeeze in a call from Abdisala in London, who's been waiting as well. Abdisala, your question, please.
I think Africa needs to be freed. Africa being held so much by the West, and Africa need to be freed financially.
Okay.
So they can be concentrate on their development.
All right, Abdisala, I'm going to put this because we have 30 seconds, less than 30 seconds to Razia Khan. Do you think politics will change as a result of political interactions? Geopolitics will change as a result of this crisis now in Africa? Very short answer, please.
It's difficult to say that. I think generalization, we are going to see a short-term market impact. The hope is that the real economies will be able to avoid the worst of the crisis. Should it impact on politics? Not necessarily.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Razia Khan. Professor Tandon, thank you, sir. And Todmos, thank you. Thank you for being with us. Don't forget you can get an update on all of our upcoming shows by going to aljazeera.net/English. Drop us an email. We'll see you next time. From me and the team, goodbye.